7th of December. And if we start with declarations of interest, and I will kick off because I have a declaration through my consultancy that I'm promoting on behalf of the landowner, a site for residential development in Coney. When the site is under consideration, I will declare that it's a sustainable pecuniary interest and shall vacate the chair and not be present in the room, whether that be virtually or otherwise. I also would just like the board to note that my father, through his company, is promoting on behalf of the landowners a residential development in Cossey. Again, in this particular case, the provisions of the Code of Conduct, there is no interest to declare which prevent me from participating in the debate or chairing the meeting. So that's my declaration. Just moving on. So who else? John, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm a member of the Consultative Council at the Royal Norfolk Agricultural Association. I think Barry Stone is as well. It's a non-decision-making body, it's certainly non-pecuniary, but just for completeness, we have an association with the Norfolk Agricultural Association.
Okay, thank you for that, John. Barry, you've got your hand up. I think John's done it for you.
John's done it for me. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for that. Lana, you've got your hand up.
I don't know, Chairman, if you and I need to declare an interest as directors of Broadland Growth Limited, so just in case.
Okay, well, thank you for noting that. I'd probably say we don't, on the basis that
it's personal.
The elements of Broadland Growth aren't being considered as part of the local plan, but I guess it doesn't hurt to have them noted, so thank you for that. Mike, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, again, I'm not sure whether or not this is something I should declare because it's non-pecuniary, but I'm a director of Norwich Regeneration Limited, which is a construction company, building company.
Okay, thank you for that, Mike. I think that's probably in the same ilk of myself and Lana, so I guess for completeness it's there and people are aware of it, so thank you. Is there anything for anybody else? No. Okay, again, just reminder of general etiquette. The meeting is virtually being held, so if you wish to speak, if you could raise your hand either physically so I can see it, or in the participant list, which is easier to see, then I will introduce you at the appropriate time to come forward. So thank you for that. Moving on then, so the second item on the agenda is apologies for absence. I believe we've got a couple, James, haven't we?
Yes, Chairman, we have apologies from Councillor Lorne and Councillor Clancy.
Okay, thank you for that. Then we have the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of November, which are on page, or start on page 4. Can I take those minutes as being correct, or is there anything that anyone wants to update, change, delete?
Agree from my side, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. I can't see anyone. Okay, so we'll take it that those minutes are correct and I will sign those off. Thank you. That brings us to matters arising. Are there any matters arising for anybody out of those minutes? No. Okay, that moves us on then to questions. I don't believe we have any questions, Mike. You're on mute, but I take the shake of the head as a no.
That's a no.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, that moves us on to item 6, which is the main item of business for today, which is the relevant elements around the Regulation 19 of the new local plan. Again, I'd just like to thank the officers at this point in time for the amazing amount of work that's gone in to get us to this stage. Many years. I think it's 4 or 5 years of work has got us to this point. And there's a lot of things that have as such gone under the bridge. A lot of water's gone under the bridge in between time. So the plan has developed and got us to the stage where we are now in considering the Regulation 18 document that's before us. Again, the recommendations relating to this are at the top of page 9, and there's 2 recommendations there. One relates to us as a board recommending to our individual councils the pre-submission draft of the Regulation 18. Again, that's around it's going forward on the basis of soundness and legal compliance. And then there's a second recommendation there, just to enable any changes that we agree today or subsequently agree can be made to the plan, and we can delegate those to the directors to make those changes before the reports are considered by our respective councils in January. So they're the 2 recommendations. As far as the published papers are concerned, we received the Regulation 19 document version 1.3, and that's subsequently been updated. So you should have all received version 1.4 and also a list of changes that bridge you from the 1.3 to the 1.4. That list of changes is quite considerable, but it does show all of the different things and the things moved forward. So hopefully everyone recognises the elements that they've put forward on that list. Before I move on to that list, I just asked Mike, is there anything you want to add at this point before I go to the list?
No, just to make it clear that today we're dealing with the strategy, and although that has significant implication for the sites, we'll be dealing with the sites document on the 16th of December.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Thank you for just clarifying that we're looking at the strategy document, not the sites documents at this point in time. Okay, so looking at the list, we have a list of changes from the 1.3 to the 1.4 version of the document before you. I don't propose to go through those line by line, so I'd like to deal with it by exception. So throw it open to anybody. Is there any comments on those list of changes that anyone requires clarification or anything on? John, you got your hand up? Sorry, John. You're on mute.
Yeah, there we are. Right, good. Okay, thank you for that. Yes, so yes, as you say, there was a list circulated to us about 10 days ago, before last, the weekend before last, on version 1.3. Certainly, and at your invitation, Chairman, I went through, just going through there, and by the time we finished, there was about 5,000 words of mods to be made, and I'm pleased to say that significant numbers have been included in this version 1.4. So I think that we're making progress insofar as the 1.4 document, which is sort of really the product of that one and this changes here, are concerned. I think we have made good progress, but there are still a small number of sort of in principle sticking points. However, as a result of a meeting which we held this morning, I am now confident that we're within touching distance of getting these addressed. And just for completeness, if I just say that one of them was, it's really important we have adequate explanation and just reason justification for the village cluster work. This was the point most mentioned in the Reg 18, and if our Reg 19 is to mean anything, it should actually attempt to respond to points raised, not just template responses where a lot of organisations sort of signed the same document, but also material responses there. I do think that as we go through this document, we have to recognise that taking from the 2014 baseline, which is directionally 40,000 homes, and bridging all the way up to 49,000 homes, that does represent a 22% over allocation against the 2014 baseline need. That's a significant number, and I notice in the report and there's the potential for a contingency side. But I think it's critical that if there is to be a contingency, and if we're 22% above baseline, one might start to wonder why, but nevertheless, if there is to be a contingency, the trigger point needs to be a significant one. Otherwise, it isn't a contingency, it's just a nod and a wink. But I do think we've made some progress on that. I think also a sticking point is not adequately covered in the text before us today, but could easily be remedied, is that I think we just need to recognise that Cossey, Queen's Hills and Easton now comprises over 25,000 residents. It is 25% larger than Dereham. it's bigger than Galston in population terms, and yet residents of that part of South Norfolk do not in any way have the sort of amenities I think people would expect to living in a settlement of that size, and especially in food, restauration and leisure opportunities. So, but in discussion with officers, I do think we have a way forward on that. And again, I'll wait with interest to see what version 1.5 of this document comes when we consider it next week. Back in July, we were advised that as a result of the passage of time and other factors, not least COVID, that the economic study needed to be updated. And I do understand the updated study was delivered tail end of last week, just a matter of days ago. Back in July, it was explained that failure to update that would be a soundness point. And so I think it's really critical that the economic report from GVA, or whoever they call themselves nowadays, is fully incorporated into this plan, not least because we were warned earlier that soundness is an issue. And I think we do need to recognise that COVID is probably going to be a multi-generational impact on development, and we just need to make sure that the up-to-date impacts of that, as far as we can see, are baked into it. There are a significant number of minor points, but each of them I believe to be easily remedied. So there were a number of internal inconsistencies relating to gypsies and travellers, railways and so forth. I think they've been adequately addressed. I think that we recognise that insofar as strategic gaps and turbine sensitivity zones in South Norfolk, that we just need to get that fiddled in. Better pen portraits of the market towns towards the end of the plan. And we talk about a low carbon economy, post-carbon economy, which I'm fully behind, but there's no mention of hydrogen. So I think we just have to recognise, let's articulate the problem, but also think about the solution. I know that the City Council is working hard to get better explanation for the East Norwich. There are 2 paragraphs towards the end of section 7.1, I think it is. But then in the policy text, which isn't before us today, but will be, shows 2 pages of potential impacts. So I think we just need to make sure there's a stitch together of not just the strategy, but also making sure that the policies in the sites, come together. Otherwise, we're going to give with one hand and take with the other. And finally, I won't go through everything, as you say, line by line. The numbers in table 6 still don't add up. 9,107 plus 1,200 plus 200 does not equal 10,486. So I think that we just have to do some basic arithmetic on those. I suspect it's the 9107 number in table 6 that is incorrect in the right hand column, but I can't see how that's made up from the table a few pages on from that. So again, some typos need to be done there. So in summary, I'm pleased we've made good progress this morning. I think we just need to make sure that progress truly is baked into version 1.5, which I know will be circulated soon. I've certainly made my comments and observations available. I'm sure other members have as well. So if that all comes good, unexpectedly, because as of this morning, I wasn't at all confident this would be the case, but I now feel that we can get the plan in place to proceed probably when we meet on Wednesday the 16th, having taken together not just the strategic policies, but some of that detailed sites policy that hinges off it. I don't believe we can separate one from the other. And this additional few days will also allow us to incorporate the economic study point, which of course was a soundness issue. And of course, Reg 19, we're being invited to talk about soundness. So there we go. I just hope that that is also going to help us answer what I'm going to call the Debenhams question. In the last week, £4 million worth of rateable value has been wiped from city centre shops in just Debenhams and Arcadia alone. And I think we've just got to make sure that our plan looking forward, plans positively and flexibly of how we're going to pivot places like the city centre as well as our market towns. So the plan that goes between 2018 and 2038, a long time ago, can remain relevant as we go forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that, John, and thank you for covering the key elements there. So that's useful to do that. Again, just picking up some of those points, we need to make sure that the numbers in the tables are correct, as you've highlighted, and also bringing those other elements together around making sure that the links between the 2 different pieces The economic study, I think Phil is going to give us an update on that when we get to that point. And also the other two elements you touched on there around the trigger points and the impact on COSI and trying to make COSI a different type of location will be picked up through the site allocation. So I think all of those things are in the right place. Phil, did you want to come in at this point around the economic study? Did you want to just share that with us, Phil Morris?
Yes, Chair. I'll be brief. We commissioned Avison Young to update the GVA study of 2017. Avison Young took over GVA, so it's a continuation in some ways of, some of the people involved are the same people. They have used Experian forecasting plus what they call their cities recovery index, which is Avison Young's own index, to update the study, particularly taking account of COVID, of course, but also the sort of 3 years that have passed. They've used the latest data where that's available, and the Experian forecasts, for example, are from September 2020, so they are the most up-to-date forecasts that we can use. Essentially, the headlines are on the sort of jobs and the overall jobs and employment land side of things. They expect Experian expect the recovery to be V-shaped, i.e. A fairly quick recovery from the main impacts of COVID, and they expect that recovery to begin fairly steadily from the next financial year. So although the economy is obviously taking a hit right now, the recovery should be steady. And the outcome of that is that we will see in the region of 33,000 jobs growth between 2020 and 2038. So there may be some decline in the sort of first 2 years of the plan, but from now until the end of the plan period, we will see around, or the forecast is around 33,000 additional jobs. About 25,000 or more of those do not take place in what's called B-class employment, what was B-class employment anyway. So, don't necessarily take place on employment land, but take place throughout the economy. So they translate those jobs, that job growth, into employment land, and the outcome of that is our need is about 75 hectares. We always knew that we had a lot more employment land than need, but that's because a significant amount, 280 hectares, is actually within our key strategic sites, places like NRP, Broadland Business Park, Hethel. The employment land that is there for specific purposes to attract and retain businesses. So even though we've got a significant over allocation of employment land, there are reasons behind that. On the retail side, clearly there are some very significant impacts, and the outcome of that is that there is some relatively minor capacity for food-based retailing, principally outside of the Norwich urban area. This, for example, is still highlighted as a location that could accommodate some more food retailing, but very little growth within the urban area. And then for comparison goods, which is essentially non-food goods, the impact of COVID has been severe, and the outcome of that is that in the urban area there is negative growth over the first 10 years of the forecast at least, and probably beyond. But the impact of negative growth is not necessarily loss of floor space, although loss of floor space is likely to occur, but it will also impact on business turnover. So businesses may continue with a reduced turnover, or they may reconfigure their floor space, or we will lose businesses. Councillor Fuller has already highlighted what he called the Debenhams impact. So there is some significant impacts. We need to now look at what happens next in terms of our process. So what I intend to do is provide you with a written report, and we will then be able to publish also the actual reports from Avison Young for your meeting on the 16th. And at that time as well, we will have any policy updates that are required from that evidence. Essentially, the policy response is to maintain significant flexibility, particularly in terms of town centre and city centre development, to enable businesses.
Okay, looks like Phil, you back with us? Or no, you're having technical problems.
To flex the policy implications to the side.
No, looks like he's stuck. Okay, so thank you for that, Phil. If I've understood correctly, then from what you're saying, that there are some elements that we need to incorporate, which you'll bring a paper back to the next meeting that we can see relating to. Mike, if I understood that correctly? No, you're on mute, Mike.
I think what Phil was just about to say was that we need to maintain the current flexibility we have in the plan. And that's partly to do with changes in national policy, which of course affect us locally. But we have been taking an approach where we'll have flexibility within our centres. So the Avison Young report finds that that's an approach we should continue to take. So it backs up the approach we've taken so far.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, Mike. It looks like you're back with us, Phil. Is that anything else to add?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you missed, but Mike covered. Yeah, Mike covered what I wanted to say. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any questions on this particular report before we move on to other matters? Alan?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Just a couple of things to sort of pick up from previous comments. I think maximum flexibility clearly is the best way forward, because the number of different factors or national policy strategies, as well as what we do locally, which will influence the direction in which we're going. What's certain is there's a significant transition in the economy, which we have to take account of. And as regards the issue of business rates, which of course, as we all know, basically is a core part of the funding of local authority services, that model is in very poor shape, and some serious thinking is going to need to be done to ensure that councils, not least to help deliver the outcomes of this local plan, need to be sufficiently well resourced to do that, as well as meet options under dealing with ambitious climate change targets and broader economic and social recovery. A couple of specific things, just to point that I had mentioned about East Norwich. Councillor Mike Starnard is in the room, and he chairs the East Norwich Partnership. He may want to say something more about it, but there's very, very pleasing sort of efforts, I would say, going into sort of shaping the master planning and moving that forward, and that's a success. So Mike may want to say something more about that. And there is this general point about uncertainty, and in terms of the timetable that we set, I think one of the drivers was to remove one element of uncertainty, which was to be able to use the transition period which the government had provided for between the existing planning framework and what will emerge in some shape from the white paper. not to follow that through, and of course we're all committed to making sure we meet the timetable, would, you know, open up another high level of uncertainty, which at least we're able to control by the process and the timetable that we have set. We're going to be talking about sites at the next meeting, so I've got comments to make about the sites and about contingencies and so on, but I'll leave them to next week's meeting.
Okay, thank you for that, Alan. As you say, we'll talk about sites specifically on the 16th of December. So, Mike, did you want to come in at this point?
I can just give a
introduced by Alan.
Yeah, well, as Alan's raised it, very briefly, we've got an East Norwich Partnership Board, which is, Alan said, I chair. The purpose of that clearly is to, with the 3 different sites, to coordinate their development, and all landowners are members of that board. It also includes the city and county councils, Homes England, the LEP, and recently joined by Network Rail, which is really, really important development in terms of the Trowse Swing Bridge and the navigability. And we're at the moment, we're sharing the cost of a master plan that we will produce for all 3 sites, so the entire East Norwich site. We're at the moment in the process of commissioning consultants to work with us to develop that master plan. But it's very exciting, not least because all of the landowners are signed up to working within that framework. So we're making good progress. We've also got some money from the Towns Fund, and we've basically got what you might want to call a war chest of £5 million to help us with any development work that we might need to do, any facilitation work. It's just sitting there for us to use. So all really, really good news. I mean, I believe it's the biggest brownfield development site outside London, or it was at one point. I don't know if it still is, but it's, you know, it's a major area for us, and it's not just a new quarter of the city. It's a new district in an area that many people don't even realise is there. So it's all going very well, and obviously we'll keep you informed. I said I'd be brief, and I wasn't, so apologies.
No, thank you for that, Mike. It's useful to hear how things are progressing and coming together, and again the commitments that seem to be there from all of the landowners in making that happen. So that's good to hear. So thank you for that. Again, just a reminder of the things that we're looking at. So around the timetable that was mentioned. So from the Regulation 19, we're talking about that. What we're recommending to our cabinets will be around mid-January, with the idea of the publication of the consultation being from the 1st of February to the 15th of March, with a view of then in July being able to submit the documents to the Secretary of State, which means through due process, we'll end up at a point where we'll be able to adopt the local plan. We're looking at September 22 at this point in time. So just a quick run through the timetable there for you. John, I see you've got your hand up. You wanted to come back on something? Sorry, John, you're on mute. Still can't hear you, John, sorry.
Yeah, just to emphasize what Mike just said and to amplify it really, in paragraphs 326, 327, I don't think, and this is what I think we're looking forward to coming in the next version 1.5, Mike has just laid out a huge amount of progress and certainty over delivery. And none of that is featured in 326 and 327. And I think that's just an illustration of some of the way this document can be strengthened between now and next week. You know, I think if an inspector reads this and then understands, gosh, all the landowners really are on board, that strengthens the proposition. And so this document isn't just about headwinds and things that need to be fixed. It's actually about opportunities. And I think that's part of the tone that I'm looking to see in this next sort of light touch iteration. Chairman, I think there's one other point that it's worth, and some of us have been discussing this for weeks, but this is probably the first opportunity in public to make it clear that we have taken what I think is a pragmatic decision to go beyond the housing numbers that we consulted upon back in Reg 18, noting, of course, that the government since that moment has had a manifesto commitment to increase housing numbers by 20%. And and there are changes in methodologies which as yet may still be tweaked, but whatever. I think, so having gone from the 40,000 baseline case, up to what is, you will see from table 6 is 49,000, responds, dare I say, pragmatically to that. But in all times, I think, and the latest version 1.4 makes it clear that insofar as 5-year land supply and baseline need is concerned, there is no confusion. That the baseline need is based on 2014, but we have chosen to go beyond that pragmatically. And I think just that exceptional clarity there and understanding is what's needed. And we've partly been able to add more from East Norwich, but also I think, as a matter of fact, from taking into account windfalls, which is something we've never really done before. But I think just taking a third of historic windfalls is a small c conservative approach that puts us on the right side of the line, but still gives us a little bit of tuck to go over. And that may not have been picked up by everyone watching from the comfort of their own homes, but I think it is worth that is a significant change to the Reg 18 and should be recorded in public.
Okay, thank you for that, John. Yeah, thank you for just taking us through the different elements of where that sits. And again, that's a useful addition. So again, thank you. Is there any other points of clarity or anything else anyone wants before we return back to the recommendations? No? Okay, so come back to the recommendations. We have those at the top of page 9. First one of those is for us to recommend to our respective councils around the publication of the Regulation 19 documents on the basis of soundness and legal compliance. And the second one of those is just picking up changes that we've identified from today, plus any changes that we subsequently come up with on our next meeting on the 16th of December. So again, I just ask, is everyone in favour of us progressing in that way?
Just want to be clear, Chairman, that that's subject to the progress we've made this morning, sort of baking it into the 1.5. But yeah, in principle, I think we're on the way to this finish line now. Okay,
thank you for clarifying that, John. Yeah, so that's good. Looks like all the hands are up, so that's good to see. So we'll take that as a move forward. And then on the 16th, we'll focus on the sites. But again, picking up John's point, if there are elements we just need to clarify at that point on the Regulation 19 strategic document, we can do that there as well. James, did I hear you wanted to say something?
No, I said that seemed to be unanimous, Chairman.
Okay, no, thank you for that. Thank you for clarifying that. Are there any other points for anybody else? I can't see any hands up or anything else. So on the basis of not needing to prolong this longer than necessary, I will bring the meeting to a close. Thank you, everybody, for your participation and input. And thank you for all your help in bringing the documents forward as we have. So take care, stay safe, and see you again on the 16th. Bye.